The year is 1939. Europe stands on the brink of war on a scale the world hasn't seen since Napoleon's campaigns. In the east, German forces are preparing to strike Poland. Rear echelons are overloaded with ammunition, equipment, gear, and weapons. But among the hundreds of items, there's one item the German army treats with particular attention: infantry assault gear, centered on the Karabiner carbine. 99 Kurz, or Karabiner for short, 98 Ka, known worldwide as Karabiner 98K. This weapon would become a symbol of the Wehrmacht, appearing in thousands of photographs, captured as trophies on all fronts, becoming the subject of study by Allied specialists, and becoming one of the most widely copied examples of a bolt-action rifle. But to understand why this particular carbine became the face of the German infantry, we must go back a decade, to the time when Germany was bound by the Treaty of Versailles and had extremely limited capabilities for weapons development and testing. Karabiner. The 98 Ka emerged as a result of years of development of the Mauser line of rifles, dating back to the 1898 model. That same Mauser 1998, which defined the shape of European marksmanship for half a century. But by the early 1930s, it became clear that the classic rifle was too long and heavy for maneuver warfare. Mechanized units, tank crews, reconnaissance units, and most importantly, for the blitzkrieg concept that the German army was gradually adopting. The Reichswehr needed a weapon that was shorter, more convenient, and suitable for use in trenches and built-up areas, yet still possessed all the reliability and accuracy of the classic Mauser system. Mauser designers. Works and state arsenals began searching for solutions. They shortened the barrel, changed the stock shape, reduced weight, and modernized the sling attachments. Ultimately, by 1935, the Karabiner was officially adopted. The 98 Ka is a shortened version of the Mauser rifle, which embodies the traditions of German arms production, engineering discipline, and the demands of a future war. When German troops crossed the Polish border in September 1939, Karabiner, the 98 Ka, became the infantry's primary small arms. By the start of Operation Barbarossa, it was already ubiquitous. Millions of them were in the hands of soldiers of the Wehrmacht, the Waffen-SS, mountain troops, paratroopers, security units, field gendarmerie, and auxiliary regiments. This carbine traveled through the snows of Smolensk and the forests of Belarus, through the ruins of Stalingrad and the hills of Normandy, through the deserts of Africa and the urban combat of Budapest. It remained relevant until the final days of the war, when the remnants of German units attempted to hold back the Allied offensive in 1945. Karabiner, the 98 Ka, became, in a sense, a symbol of the German soldier's school, a weapon that demanded discipline, regular cleaning, proper handling, and a measured rate of fire. But it rewarded this with accuracy, range, and reliability, even in mud, dust, and low temperatures. And that's why, decades after the war, the carbine continued to serve in the armies of Europe, the Middle East, Africa, and even in the police forces of some countries. However, to understand exactly what made this carbine so successful, it is necessary to examine in detail the design, ballistics, manufacturing processes, and the actual conditions under which it was used during the largest war of the 20th century. The Mauser system of the year 1898 was revolutionary for its time. A 3-lug bolt, a well-thought-out extractor, a reliable magazine catch, and a powerful 19 cartridge. 198 cartridge, 5,8 mm by 5,8 mm. This architecture became the foundation of the Karabiner 98 Ka. A shortened 50.0 mm barrel reduced overall length and improved maneuverability. The stock was redesigned. Its dimensions were reduced. The sling attachment was modified, and a distinctive side sling swivel was introduced. The bolt handle now curved downwards, speeding up reloading and making it easier to operate in confined spaces, such as trenches or when operating under cover. The system used the same powerful 7.9mm Mauser cartridge, which delivered a muzzle velocity of approximately 750 meters per second, depending on the ammunition type. Combat experience from 1914 to 1918 demonstrated that this ammunition offered both sufficient penetration and a good range up to 1,000 meters on a flat trajectory and up to 1,600 meters on an indirect trajectory. This versatility became one of the key factors in the carbine's popularity. German industry was rapidly expanding in the 1930s. Karabiner production 98K Velocia na Mauser Werke, as well as at numerous arsenals, Berlin, Lübers, Oberndorf, Gustloff Werke, and other enterprises. Each factory used its own marking codes, which allowed it to conceal production volumes from foreign intelligence. Military inspection officers monitored steel processing standards, heat hardening, wood quality, and component fit. With the onset of a full-scale war, Germany faced a resource problem. Carbine production was simplified. The carefully fitted metal bandages disappeared. The sighting ribs were simplified, and the complex milling of some parts was eliminated. However, even with this simplification, the Karabiner 98K retained functionality and precision, an indication that the basic architecture was laid down at a high level. By the beginning of the Eastern Campaign in 1941, Karabiner the 98K became one of the most widely produced weapons on the planet. In the East, the weapon underwent tests no designer could have imagined. Low temperatures, snow, ice, mud, sand, and excessive barrel strain during intensive firing. Even when automatic weapons froze, the carbine continued firing. Its longitudinally sliding system, with a rigid extractor, rarely misfired. German snipers, using 4x magnification optics, prized it for its stability and ability to maintain accuracy even at temperatures as low as -30 degrees Celsius. On the Western fronts, in the conditions of Normandy, Belgium, and the Netherlands, Karabiner the 98K became a long-range weapon, allowing German riflemen to control sectors of up to several hundred meters. This compensated for its lower rate of fire compared to Allied self-loading rifles. In the African theater of war, the carbine, on the contrary, suffered from sand and dust, but even here, its system was more resilient than complex, semi-automatic mechanisms. Regular cleaning ensured its operation without critical failures. The German infantry was built around the concept of precise, disciplined fire. The primary source of automatic fire was the point-of-impact light machine gun, the MG 48 or MG 42. Karabiner 98K complemented it at medium range. There were Quicking the 40 submachine guns, but they were relatively rare until mid-war. Therefore, a rifleman with a Karabiner 98K had to be able to fight at all distances, from 20 to 500 meters, which formed a special German shooting discipline. Wehrmacht snipers prized the carbine for its accuracy. A 4x magnification optic made it suitable for ranges up to 800 meters. Variants were available with side and top-mounted mounts, side-loading magazine mechanisms, and reinforced triggers. Sniper rifles were hand-selected only the best barrels, with minimal dispersion, were approved for optics. Karabiner. The 98K became one of those weapons that wasn't simply used in war, but shaped its very character. It wasn't revolutionary, didn't introduce new principles of combat, and didn't have a high rate of fire or automatic mode. However, in the conditions of World War II, it demonstrated what German riflemen valued: reliability, accuracy, and obedience to command. A weapon with a rigid mechanical character, requiring careful maintenance, strict discipline, and precise distance calculations. A weapon that survived where the Allied assault rifles and semi-automatic rifles faltered in the mud and cold. a weapon that remained relevant even after the advent of new automatic models. Its fate after the war is also remarkable. Karabiner's vast reserves, 98 Ks, were sent to the armies of Norway, Denmark, Czechoslovakia, and Israel. In the Middle East, these carbines were used in combat until the 1960s. Some Latin American countries used them in police and military forces until the 1970s. This is a rare case of a weapon designed in the 1930s continuing to serve more than 40 years after its introduction. Today, Karabiner, the 98 K, remains a subject of interest for collectors, reenactors, competitive shooters, and historians. Its design is studied as a benchmark example of a bolt-action rifle. Its accuracy continues to amaze, and its historical significance remains undeniable. This carbine combined the German engineering school of the early 20th century, the combat experience of two world wars, the industrial discipline of the Third Reich, and the fates of millions of soldiers. The 98 K is more than a weapon. It is an engineering monument of an era, frozen in steel, wood, and mechanics, outliving its creators and remaining in history as one of the most recognizable and revered firearms of the century.